Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm your host, Kevin Wallace, and before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Streetside Brewery. Look, these guys are located in historic Columbia Tusculum neighborhood on the east side of Cincinnati, and Streetside is really the perfect mix of just local neighborhood watering hole and a modern craft beer brewery. They have 24 beers on tap, and I promise you, you will not find a bad one amongst them. These guys were great when they had us out for the live show for the CONCACAF Champions Cup kickoff to start FC Cincinnati's season, and they do events all throughout the year. They do a pint night on Tuesday nights. They do Premier League mornings. Tons of really fun events there. But a special note to Postcast listeners, if you mention the Cincy Postcast at the bar when you're getting your beer, they will take $1 off of your beer, and you let them know that we sent you their way. You can find them at 4003 Eastern Avenue or in the fridge of wherever you're picking up your next beer. Again, a huge thank you to Streetside Brewery for sponsoring the Postcast. And on today's episode, we have a very full episode for you. In part one, we are talking about that FC Cincinnati match versus Charlotte on the road, a draw that feels like a win, a draw that feels like a draw. Where is this team right now? It's at the top of the table, but how does this offense actually make you feel? We talk quite a bit about this game. In part two, we look around the league. We take in a couple of the top stories in Major League Soccer over the past week or so, and we wrap it up in part three with questions from the Patreon, and that'll be your postcast. Joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by two gentlemen who also have been just listening nonstop to Beyonce's latest country album. We're joined by the Chief, and we're joined by Grayson. Chief, you've survived your mountain retreat. You've come back from your place in the, away from civilization. How are we feeling?
Oh, it wasn't away from civilization. I was in Asheville. There's plenty of civilization. There was good beer. I drank way too heavily. That was a lot of fun.
Good.
But no, it's always fun to be back home, because no matter how nice wherever you are is at, there's just something about, rounding the corner on I-75, seeing the city come into view. I don't know. It feels good to be home. It felt good to be home. Felt good to be back in Cincinnati. Happy to be with you guys. Happy to not be recording a podcast while my wife is asleep in the hotel bed or trying to find a business center to do that. It's the sacrifices we make for being content creators, but we're back. We're here. We're all together. It's exciting.
Yes. No, we're very happy to have you back. I would say, that's what Scott Walker was talking about through the Willows and Pines, the lights of Cincinnati. It's
Keeps
nice.
calling me back home.
You don't know what you got until it's gone, and then you get to come right back a week later. So it's nice. Grayson, weirdly not the one out and about. How did the weekend find you?
Today I found myself thinking about the concept of like ties that are wins and ties that are losses.
Yeah.
And so I spent some time musing about the War of 1812 that was ended by the Treaty of Ghent.
Yep.
Which how the propensity of the United States to chuck things down as ties when they're losses.
I don't know. I was just thinking today about another loss that got turned into a win about 2024 years ago. And it really put things into perspective there, folks.
The Easter themed tweets I sent from the post didn't get our most engagement. So
we're bold takes. I mean, you're really trying to thread a very fine lane when it comes to soccer engagement with a religious, bend to it.
Look,
because unfortunately, Carl Linder's not on Twitter, so your number one audience for these takes is not finding you.
He would have loved it. I was trying to, in my head, I started laughing when I thought FCC version of Fuck, Marry, Kill, but it's the Easter version of the FCC version of Fuck, Marry, Kill. And that concept was really funny to me. I just couldn't execute it well. So,
as the premier Sedevacantist soccer podcast in the United States,
without a doubt,
it's a tough mix of like trying to stick to sports, as they say, which we will never.
No.
Right? Because we serve a higher purpose, which is getting attention.
Yes.
Selling out.
Selling out, especially to the Pope. Yes.
and I think that there are worse things than not getting engagement to a tweet. Yeah. Which is getting people who clearly don't like your deal, but still want to respond to you.
Right. It's
and to that I say, man, I don't respond. I don't reply to you. I don't engage with you for reasons. If you don't, I'm not charging you to be on here. You're not you are asking me to do emotional labor when you reply to my tweets. And so I ask you, if you were going to reply to my tweets, and we can clip this, if you are going to reply to my tweets, you better sign up for the Patreon.
The problem is I've seen Grayson's mentions and it's just this account has been muted. This account has been muted. This account has been muted.
That's the best way to use Twitter, actually. I will say I've had that little jolt of excitement when you see a controversial topic or a flaming hot take. You click on it and already the whole thread is muted. It's great. All of my favorite people are already here. This is lovely.
The real question on this Easter Sunday is, would the PSRA officials book Jesus for simulation?
I mean, he seemed fine walking out. He moved that whole rock all by himself.
He was fine. There's no way he was as injured as he claimed.
Does VAR waive off the penalty? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Now I imagine Jesus walking up to Thomas and pointing to his scar on his side, like a player walking to the ref and showing the scuff on his boot. the other player stepped on it. He's
the stud marks.
No, man. See.
Yeah. Hey, they're calling Peter over to the monitor. See, you weren't expecting actual Bible talk on the day after Easter, were you, folks?
The second coming is just a resumption of the match from the point of the foul, because it was such a match altering incident. They need to replay it. So
just a drop ball right from the spot.
Kevin, that's exactly
Kevin, how was your Easter?
Here's a question for you.
Please.
Why did they let Jesus fall 3 times before pulling him out of the match and making him see the physio?
If they were playing under the new MLS rules, he'd have to take 10 seconds off before coming back in to keep walking with the cross.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the Romans would get the substitute of their own. So, you really gotta.
Did Veronica have the magic spray when she wiped his face?
That's in fact what brought him back in the cave, is they just buried him there with a bottle of the magic spray and everything was all right.
Or those like smelling salts or whatever they give they give to like the women's players.
Yeah. It's the hot boxing your tomb with smelling salts and magic spray.
The problem was, after it was all done, they held up the board for stoppage time, and it was 3 days of stoppage time. What the hell? Who's counting this?
This ref's gone out of his mind.
Goddamn Roman refs.
This is what the people crave. This is why.
Right. This is why they're asking us to do an MLS podcast too, is because they desire other fan bases having to put up with this bullshit as well.
Why do other people listen to this?
This shit is unlistenable and sacrilegious. It's a double whammy.
Yeah, I don't like any of this.
I don't think anything was sacrilegious. And frankly, if you're offended by anything we said, which was just the truth, I think you need to,
take a hard look in the mirror about your faith.
Yeah. And you sound like a fan, so careful.
Yeah.
But never mind.
This is enough editing already. Thanks.
It's always a fun game to see how hard we can make Kevin's Sunday night just with the things we say.
It's good. It's good. Oh my God. Well,
speaking of things that rose from the dead, FC Cincinnati on Sunday.
Hey, now there's the transition. Once again, your FC Cincinnati decides to take their sweet old time getting into a match. This is, as far as I can tell, the MO of this team, where please do not judge them on the first half hour or even the first hour of a match. That's not fair. It's how you finish a game. And the final 30 minutes is how, if you did actually, in fact, go back and just judge this team on the final 30 minutes of virtually every match they played in this year, I think you'd come away with the idea that this is one of the best MLS teams ever assembled. But unfortunately, these matches are 90 minutes long, and they don't look good for the first 2/3 of these games.
Yeah, I saw a headline kind of about the bottom line of this game. This is from Breitbart.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. It's a Charlotte's Easter Conference Rising overshadowed as Yedlin sees Boup's layoff visibility and eases FC fan anxiety with therapeutic conversion.
It was therapeutic. It did feel good in that moment. So I guess we'll start this episode off. Grayson, if I recall last week that you weren't ready to pull the panic button out about the offense, but you were ready to pull out the concerned button, if I remember correctly. What button are we pulling out this week about the status of this attack and the frankly shocking inability of this team to generate decent offensive chances?
Yeah, so we are over nobody do the math on this. I believe we're over 12.5% of the way through the season.
Feels right. Let's
which
go.
Which is the budget hit for a senior designated player. So I think that it's fair to judge how things are going. And
what a threshold.
Wow. Man, this podcast does the work for you, folks.
And I would say that, I'm ready to push the panic button. I did some math, and the 2021 FC Cincinnati team.
Oh, I don't like this.
That finished at the very bottom of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Scored 37 goals in 34 games.
Oh,
we are behind that pace.
Yeah. The numbers, in case you were wondering, this was brought to you by Michael.
And there's mitigating factors, right? Like,
hold on. Just to set the discussion, this is from Michael McSwain, who put this into my mentions on Twitter, so I'm going to give him the credit for it. So we are now 6 MLS matches into the season. Mm-hmm. In 2023, this team had scored 8 goals through 6 matches with 14 points total. The 24 team has scored 6 goals through 6 matches with 12 points total. And as Grayson just informed us, if you are scoring 1 goal per game, which 6 goals in 6 games averages out to, that's a 34 goal total that we're on pace for right now, which would in fact be behind the 37 goals we mentioned earlier. So I just want to level set out where we are and where we were compared to last year before we continue onward with our panic button pushing.
Yeah, and actually that would be like the second worst. Well, actually, that's not true. That's not true. It would be ahead of the 2019 season. So it would be ahead of the 2019 season, ahead of the 2020 season, even when you factor in that 2020 was the COVID year, so there was only like 20 some games played. But I think that the mitigating factors are that this offseason, you know, we did lose our DP striker and our most valuable player, so it makes sense that it would take the team some time to adjust, right?
Yeah, we said that. We absolutely said that this team was going to be up and down until the new pieces fit together. If in fact
the things I said were not true.
Well,
we returned our DP striker and we returned our MVP.
Oh. I always think of Brandon Vasquez was a DP in my mind. In my mind, he was a designated player.
Brandon Vasquez is the most valuable player in that the value to cost is, you know, to actual spend is there. And we did lose Brenner.
Barreal was the most valuable player. If you look
at that's fair. Who we also lost.
Yeah, because he was on a cheaper contract.
Right.
Much cheaper contract than Vasquez, actually.
So we lost him, and we did lose Brenner, not this past offseason.
We lost his goal.
His entire goal. I'm just saying, I could argue the point. I will say this. To devil's advocate the offense. On the goal did.
That's bold on Easter.
The devil doesn't need an advocate, sir.
Take it up with the Catholic Church, all right?
Yeah, he has the American Bar Association. He doesn't need your help.
He has the current pope.
Of course.
Who isn't real.
Well, that seems contradictory, but I'm game.
I feel like he was named Pope while Benedict was still alive. That can't happen. That invalidates his entire thing.
No Pope for the last 60 years has been real.
I mean, if you talk to the Protestants, it goes back further than that.
Talk to me on this here.
I said this. This is the Sedevacantis podcast. Okay, we do not recognize any actions by the Catholic Church after the Second Vatican Council.
Because they didn't make their proclamation in Latin? What?
No, because it's just...
They just don't acknowledge the second. Yeah. Well, here's my argument. For the first time since 2022, Sergio Santos made a game-altering run and play on the ball. Aaron Bupenza scored a goal. Dado and Yedlin are contributing to goals. And did I see Brett Halsey with a backheel clearance to start the movement? Look, I'm just saying.
No.
I would believe it. I'd believe it if you told me Sergio Santos was useless in this game, but he wasn't. And I believe it if Bupenza didn't score in this game, but he did.
Hold on.
Hold on. I have a headline. I saw a headline about Sergio Santos.
Please.
This is from CNET.
This is going to be good.
It's the FC should buy out Boup. The FC should buy out Baird. The FC should buy out Ordashano. Anonymous Collective reveals Chiefs draft tweets showing secret plan to inspire offensive breakout.
I'm standing by my take. I'd still buy Santos out right now, but
I mean, it was a nice run.
Yes.
And also, you got to give Yedlin credit for that run. I don't know that anybody else that this team has available to play at right back makes that play.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give credit to who I think was the key linchpin in all of that, though. And I did see a headline about this in Psychology Today. Flank me harder, Dado. Great pass from Valenzuela down left-hand side, starts attack that saves the FC.
So good.
I mean, it was a good goal. It was an incredible goal. It's in
one of our
time.
better team goals
You
of all
should
time.
have said, "Uck me harder," because you have the UK, and then you end with "Save the FC."
I feel like that joke would have gone over everyone's head, so we're just going to go with flank and spank. I think that's where the real humor is here. Because it did go down the right hand. No, fair enough. We're going inside the bit here. If you have to explain the joke, you've already lost it.
I have to explain all the jokes, which is part of the. But the punchline of every joke I make is explaining the joke.
I want to be a stand-up comic where I just say "get it" after every joke. But so with this goal,
get her done.
It started off by Halsey. Dotto makes an incredibly well-weighted pass, one of the best passes all night, to Sergio Santos, who, for the first time in as long as I can remember, has gotten behind his man.
Oh,
for
so
at least
good.
with at least a
It
step.
was a perfectly timed run.
It was
incredible. It was so good. Like, I'm not confident he's able to replicate that next game, but you do. But it is like one of those things where it's like, oh man, I just did something right there.
Yeah. It wasn't just that he beat his man. He timed it. He had a step. The ball is perfectly weighted so that it finds him in stride. He brings it center to where Yedlin looks over his shoulder, just like casually as the ball is coming. It's the kind of move that only a guy that has like national team experience and played at a high level can even think about making that move. Back heels it over to Boup, who then uses his right foot just to cap off the absurdity. And again, with the entire goal to aim for, still almost kicks it directly at the people that were coming in to sweep the ball off the line. But they don't. Scores the goal. It's an improbable save, or a save of a point. But again, that's what it took to salvage a point. It took Halsey doing something spectacular, Dotto doing something spectacular, Santos actually beating his man, Yedlin with an incredible back heel, and Aaron Bupenza using his off foot. That's what it took for this team to score a goddamn goal in this game. That isn't repeatable.
Right. And I think like I want to see the team do simple things, right? Like try to get goals not through like miraculous plays exclusively. Although I do like to see them pull off miracles.
It's on brand for Holy Week.
But try the simple stuff, like maybe just get the ball at the corner of the box and fall down and get a free goal. Like we never do that.
No.
Other teams seem to have that one figured out against us, which is the old dribble, at a leisurely pace at the corner of the goal and get fouled and get a penalty. Yeah.
So Noonan was at a quote after the match to this point. So I'm going to read it. It was from Carter's article on FCC.com. Noonan says this: "You see, with certain guys, it's not desperation, but they want to get on the score sheet with goals and assists. They want to help the team. And sometimes when you're looking to help the team so much by providing goals and assists, you may be there we go. Come on, Carter, get it together. You may be making the wrong decisions. And I think that's an issue with our team as a whole in the moment, because I think all the guys have been getting themselves into pretty good spots and haven't been able to capitalize." He says, "We need to be less urgent. We need to be more patient in the right moments to find the right pass. We need to be more decisive in how we run to goal and how we create a shot. We're getting into good spots, but now we just need to talk through and keep looking at how we can be better with the decision-making in those moments." I think Noonan is kind of arguing for real what we're kind of joking about, and that's this idea of just do less. That everyone seems like they are trying to do the incredible and do a little less, be a little more simple. And I don't know about you guys, but I was frustrated as hell watching this game. So there's all this talk online and there's all this chatter about Lucho, his body language, his exasperation and what he's doing. I feel bad for Lucho at this point because when he gets the ball, everyone just stands around. The amount of people in this game in the attacking third who, when Lucho had the ball, were just standing. They weren't moving to make themselves available. They weren't moving to create space. They weren't making runs anywhere. It honestly, you can say this is a hot take. I don't care. It honestly looked like Yop Stomball, where it was everyone waiting around for Lucho to do something incredible, and there just didn't seem to be a plan of attack with what to do and how to make space and how to make themselves available to play a ball through, to move a ball out wide. It was stagnant.
So that there's like kind of that's like kind of the little extremes that you're playing between, right? There's like, we're going to try something like wild and aggressive and bold all the time, or we're just going to back pass and lateral pass and play it extremely safe and have a lot of possession, but never threaten, which is like Stom ball.
Yeah.
And, you know, you need to find that happy medium between the two, where you're taking risks and you're playing with courage, but you're also like being smart, right? Where if like something isn't going to come off, you play the safe ball. But if, you know, somebody's got a run and you got an angle and you got the quality, you know when to make that choice, right?
Right.
And I think that's a really hard thing to do. And unfortunately, like, I agree with Chief, like, it's kind of all on Lucho right now. Like, the entire, like, all of these choices are on his shoulders. And, like, to an extent, it's not fair. Like, I think Orishano has I think he's working on doing, like, kind of the stuff we saw between Lucho and Barreal last year, and I think they're going to get there because you see a lot of I think promise from that combination, but they're not there yet. But like, Brenner was pretty good at coming back and providing another like creative presence who can make space for others, but also have quality on the ball. And we're not seeing anything from, maybe I'm wrong, but like just to my eye, like we're not seeing anything from anybody else on that. So it's like the choice is all on Lucho.
Right.
It's on Lucho to be like, oh, I'm going to make like an impossible pass here. I'm going to play like a great ball, or I'm going to like recycle it around. And, you know, yeah, he's the DP, he's the captain, he's the MVP, but like every good team has multiple people pushing the offense, making decisions, helping space and chances be created. And I think that's part of the frustration people are having with Lucho, is that like, it just feels like they're like, they were extremely dependent on him last year for sure. More so than 2022. But it feels like they are entirely dependent on him to create chances or to make things happen for all of the other offensive players. And the other offensive players, you know, in their frankly limited chances, aren't capitalizing.
Yeah.
And so they're not capitalizing when they get the opportunity, and they're not doing anything to make anything happen for anybody else.
Yeah. Chief, I had the same thought about the Stom era offense. That's exactly what I saw as well. Like, it's a lot of standing around and looking at the guy with the ball. There is just like, it was interesting comparing how Charlotte was playing to us, and obviously game state is different and all that jazz, but they were playing simple through balls on the ground to their strikers to run onto, playing into space, and it wasn't working. Our center backs were great, but that's just not a club we have in our bag right now. That like everything from Lucho or the midfielders is like these incredible hero crosses, play it over the top, like really cool if it can be pulled off. But I think it's asking too much of Baird and Bupenza so often that the fact that they're getting as much as they can out of this is, I think, kind of impressive, because there's just not simple, easy opportunities being presented to them often enough through these games. Like, it would be one thing if these guys were missing 8 or 9 sitters, whereas if you look at Charlotte, they should have had 2 or 3 goals in the first half alone. Easy, simple shots. Charlotte
was very dangerous in transition.
Yeah.
And I think responding to maybe one of Chiefs' tweets or something just made the point that like our offense is very dangerous in transition, which is true. I mean, we got our goal in transition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't let us get into transition often.
Right.
Teams don't let us do that.
Teams don't let us get in transition.
And so the problem that we have right now, and look, I am not you, Kevin, when it comes to my deep understanding of the game. I'm a Neanderthal when it comes to like analyzing this sport. To me, I agree with the idea that right now the problem with the attack is that we are too one-dimensional. But I think where we are too one-dimensional is that our only way we try to score is moving the ball through the middle. Because once the ball goes out wide, we do not have a big body or anyone that causes the defense even a modicum of fear that if Oriano or Yedlin hits a cross in, that someone's going to get ahead to it and score a goal.
So we don't have, I agree, we don't have like the big body with the cross, but it feels like something that could be in our repertoire is like 2 players specifically, Kubo or Bucha, making like a late run into the box.
Yes.
Like, that should be something that's available to us because I think both of those players are capable of that. But I don't see like the offense creating the right kind of space to make that a thing.
Yes. Yeah, because nobody moves. It's too stagnant. Like that type of offense, it requires people moving, and like the run that scores the goal on that type of offense isn't usually the person that ends up with the ball. It's the person that moves the defense by making a run and opens space up for the second man coming from behind, who then the ball gets played into space behind the running attacker, and then there's an opportunity to shoot from the spot or at the top of the 6-yard box because someone else has moved and made space. But there's no commitment to making space. It's people standing around ready to receive the ball and not moving to try and free up opportunity and real estate for other people to work in behind. I just keep coming back to this idea that there is a fundamental flaw in this offensive build, in that the way this team wants to play with wingbacks, getting the ball up the flank, that it breaks down when you do not have the big body striker in the middle to at least draw defenders centrally away from players like Lucho, away from players like Moreno last year or Baird this year, that like without somebody that's compressing the defense at the center of the goal mouth because you have to worry that this person is going to get ahead onto a ball, that it allows the defense to stay spread, it allows the defense to stay, spaced, and then there isn't the spots and there isn't the openings to work the balls through because there isn't that fear.
Yeah, I think in general, I agree. The one thing, though, that is a little confusing to me is how little, and I was desperately trying to find some stats to back up this assumption. So if somebody else has something, by all means, tell me how wrong I am. But it doesn't feel like Yedlin and Oriano are getting involved in the attack as much as Barreal and Arias in particular were last year. And even in the few times that they do get the ball in like promising-ish positions, especially on the corners of the 18-yard box, they were weirdly shooting. Like, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was coincidence that they both saw a couple of opportunities where they thought they had it. I don't know if that's the directive from the coach. Usually when I see something 3 times weird like that, I assume it's a coaching decision. Which again, like, I don't know what we're doing there unless they think our guys can pick up weird rebounds, but like they're not dribbling into the box and, you know, forcing the defense to collapse on them and then try to find a pass out or to the top of the box, to Grayson's point. It's just a weird lack of Yedlin right up until he has the game-winning assist, right? Like, it's so weird that they weren't more involved in this game. Like, they had DeAndre Yedlin as a wingback, like, he should be doing a little bit more than what I feel like he is doing. So I don't know if you guys had that impression, but
I think Luka has the shot in him. I mean, he did have one.
He did.
That was from forever away. It was from the logo, but it's still forced to save, tipping the ball over the bar.
And if you like, he's got that in his game, definitely more so than Yedlin. So I'm not bothered by Luka taking longer shots. It's like the times and angles he chooses to do it. Sometimes I question.
Yeah.
But you know, I know I said like hit the panic button on the attack. I'm not hitting the panic button on like Luka or like Pavel or Yedlin, you know, and their roles in the attack, because they're all new to the team. It's more, I'm disappointed in the lack of production from like, frankly, Bupenza. I know he's got 3 goals in the league in 6 games, which is like, you know, on paper, pretty good.
Is it 3 or 2?
Maybe he has one against Cavalier. Actually,
he had one against Cavalier. I'm pretty sure he only has 2 in the league. Yeah, 2.
2 goals in 3 starts. There, let me give you the spin.
Okay, yeah, 2 goals in 3 starts. Fine. But like Baird has like been around the league for a long time.
Yeah,
and he's not finishing like easy chances.
Yeah.
Boy, was there anyone on this podcast that said signing a guy after his career year might not have been the best?
It's not. First of all, it's not his career year. His career year was like 2018.
He had another great shot directly at the keeper. My man loves shooting it directly at the goalkeeper.
Yeah, and like, I think what the attack is missing.
Yeah, how do you fix this? Right, like that's the question.
Like, it's a different kind of player.
Yeah.
Like Brandon Vasquez on this team fixes so many things. You know?
Yeah.
It would be nice.
And I had a hard time watching the game and not like having resentment, which I admit is like irrational. Like I don't like actually resent Brandon for like chasing his dreams or
too late. I already tweeted at you. Making
decisions for his
getting paid.
Yeah, getting paid. Like
having kids posing with the Superman capes and being an idol for one of the biggest teams in the continent.
I don't in fact resent Brandon Vasquez for like, you know, the decisions he's made. But like I was just like man, if Brandon could just have like waited like a year to go to Europe, like this team would be doing so much better.
I keep coming back to this idea that where this is not me claiming that I dislike what Chris Albright has done. I think Chris Albright has been fantastic. I think that most of the signings he's made have been incredible. I just keep going back to, and I understand that I've been harping on him, so it sounds like I'm just over this guy. But the idea that you replace Brandon Vasquez with Corey Baird, who is just a different player, but we had Corey Baird's skill set on this team. We have guys that can play striker and drift back to the midfield a little bit. To me, Corey Baird is he better than Dado Valenzuela? Probably right now at this point in his career. But like you could see Dado morphing into a better version of Corey Baird more cheaply because they have a similar skill set. So you went out and you paid a lot of money to bring in a player that doesn't offer you anything different than you already had on your squad, as opposed to spending that money on someone who could potentially try to replicate what you lost with Brandon Vasquez. And that won them Supporters Shield last year, having that pairing of Bupenza plus a target man. So getting Baird instead of a target man, it just feels like in the early goings of this year, that feels like a massive error by Chris Albright in this roster build. And again, it's early, and we may be laughing at this conversation in 5 more matches when Oriano and everybody else and Buca specifically, they get more integrated into the team. They understand a little bit more about what Lucho is asking him to do, what like the offense is going to flow with. This could be a funny conversation to look back on in a couple of games, but the nagging suspicion that I have had, and it's getting a lot louder, is that not replacing Vasquez like for like with a target man and getting Corey Baird instead was a mistake.
Yeah, so our main argument going back to 2022 for why Vasquez should have been involved in the national team is that he provides a different look from the other strikers in the national team, and that Greg seems to be wedded to a profile where he just he just pulls players because they match the profile of how he likes to play. So he goes deep, his depth goes way down the ranks of ability to find the player of the right profile.
Right.
And I think with this team, they don't have enough quality they don't have enough offensive quality that provides difference.
Yeah.
I think with you need to have or it's good to have a lot of different ways that you can score, or a lot of different ways that you can attack the goal, a lot of different ways that you can advance the ball and create space. And I don't think this team has that right now. And so a player like Vasquez or another target striker, Atlanta signed Daniel Rios, who I don't think is a great player by any means, but they got him on a supplemental deal because he's on loan from some team in Mexico.
Right.
He at least provides you a different kind of look, Yeah. And I thought this about the subs this week. And I know Santos was involved in the build up to the goal, but what is the different kind of player that this team has to bring off the bench to give yourself another kind of way to score goals? Yeah. And there's nobody. It's just fresh legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, depending on how you utilize Dado, who he's replacing, maybe there's something there. Yeah, I mean,
and Dado also was a sub, right? Yeah. And Dado made an incredible pass. And love that ball. Love it.
It's telling too how late these subs come. That's exactly what this is. That these are fresh leg subs, and this is not all right, change up the approach. But also, I don't think Noonan and Albright feel compelled to change the approach. We are all whining and whinging about, not being able to pull out a second or third look. And this team is tied for first place for the Supporters Shield race and first in the East. Don't get me wrong. I can imagine a much better FCC. However, this is.
Yeah. Noonan's comments indicate that they understand there's a problem.
Right.
They understand there's a problem.
But
the defense is so good.
The defense is so good.
And in fact, I have although there was a defensive change to start the game this week.
There was.
And I found a headline about that.
Okay.
This is from Broadway World.
Heard of them.
It's after day-by-day availability, and despite the most highly anticipated return in 2,000 years, Hagelin's plan leaves fans pleading at halftime. God, spell him.
Well done.
Godspell?
Yeah.
There we go.
Finally
got one of those. Hell yeah.
We did get the change of the defense. No, I was just going to say there's also a reason, and it is this reason that we've been talking about, that FC Cincinnati has been linked to every player under the age of 22 who sort of profiles as
under 22 over 6'2". It's like
the over 6'2" initiative by FC Cincinnati. Yes,
which I'm in favor of.
Yeah, it's either Brazilian wonderkins or the Brandon Vasquez.
Are you under 22 and have you ever been nicknamed Stretch in your native language? Boy, do we have an exciting opportunity in Ohio for you.
Do you think Leonardo DiCaprio would be useful in this situation? It's not the exact
We're not coaching for
profile.
If it was an NWSL under 22 initiative, I think he'd be helpful.
Just saying, he might have, a different type of scout looking,
The defense was incredible in this game. Nick Hagelin comes in, first start, couple of nervy moments, but otherwise, they keep the clean sheet.
I thought he was bad.
I thought he was fine.
Here's the thing.
He was very visibly gassed by about like the 35th minute. And then at that point, it was like, we need to get this guy out of here at halftime.
I don't think Nick is a bad player by any means.
How dare you?
I think this year we are legitimately 5 deep at center back, and I'm very happy with the state of the center back room.
Yes. I
thought Nick was bad.
So here's my thing with Nick is his body language. I think this was Jonah's observation originally. So apologies if I've misattributed this, but like his body language is like a cartoon character playing soccer, where it's like he always has that like startup moment where he needs to run his legs, or his arms are going everywhere. His head is constantly like literally on a swivel. It is something else. Just the energy he brings. It always feels like he's on the verge of it all falling apart.
I will have you know that Nick Hagelin was not the lowest rated player on FOTMob of the FCC starting 11, and in fact wasn't even the second lowest rated player on FOTMob according to the starting for the starting 11 here. So
who was the lowest player? Like Corey Baird and
Corey Baird was the lowest.
See if you
Kubo?
can get it.
Pavel Buka.
Oh really? I think Buka's fine. I think he is going to be fine.
I agree. I think that his position is going to take the most adjusting. Him and Luka are going to have the hardest adjustment.
I think there's a lot asked of him just as a player generally. And I've been very happy with what I've seen from him to date. And I think it's only going to be better.
I agree. I didn't find a problem with Hagelin. I thought he was okay for the most part. I thought that there were nervy moments for everyone on the back line. There was a moment Miazga had where, for everyone that hates how Matt Miazga plays, and Matt Miazga picks up too many cards, and Matt Miazga he's too much of a hothead, he had just a sublimely Matt Miazga style defensive play where he is beaten over the top by a great ball, and he runs to track back, and just the subtle art of knowing how much to grab a player, and tug and make contact without doing enough that player ever feels like, if I go to ground right now, I'm going to get a call. And he holds up the attacker just enough to allow Roman to get into position to make a stop on the ball. It was incredible from a moment where he was out of position to tracking back in order to stop that. Miles Robinson had another moment where he got beat over the top and he tracked back, used his body to push the defender to a bad shooting position to where the shot they took had no ability to even come close to the net. Everyone on the
Miles
defense
had
had
several great plays.
Miles is so good. Like, however good you think Miles is a better player. It's unbelievable when you watch him play. They all had their moments. They all had nervy moments. I mean, shit, they subbed in Ian Murphy, and Ian Murphy had one of the worst touches I have ever seen. where he received a pass from Roman.
Oh, that
and
was rough.
the thing ricocheted 15 feet away from his body, causing a turnover 20 feet from goal. They all had their moments, but you know what? They held up, and it was another match where they did not concede a goal from open play and required Charlotte. What was required for Charlotte to score was yet another second penalty of the year, where it was on a completely non-threatening player in a completely non-threatening corner of the box.
Like the exact same corner of the box.
Yes. Was it Kubo?
Kubo.
The last time?
It was
last time as well.
It was Obi last time.
Okay.
It was Kubo this time. And I did see a headline about this from the aforementioned Broadway world. On the edge of the box, Kubo comes from away to make the stop, but something's missing. The contact, leaving Roman without a prayer of stopping anything.
Beautiful.
Did you, they showed, obviously they showed the play live and they showed a replay, but then they kind of felt like they were conspicuously not showing a replay of it.
Yeah.
Because usually in those situations, they will show multiple replays.
Maybe MLS told them not to harp on, poor refereeing.
Yeah, So one of the things we posited. Two things. There's actually two things that we posited in the last episode.
Yes.
One was that we would get screwed by a harsh penalty call.
Yeah.
Boom. Nailed that.
That was free money
easy.
at the casino, though. That was barely a bet.
That was the free bet.
The other was after they'd been harping on the number of VAR interventions with the replacement refs, that they have control now to decide how often VAR is going to intervene.
Yep.
And accumulate that number. And, no VAR intervention.
Not
on
one.
That.
Oh,
even
imagine
though
that.
Kubo, you could see him. He was pointing at the monitor,
take a look.
and the angle we saw on the broadcast. Nothing for me there.
The best I could guess is that he got his back leg that was
knee to knee, maybe.
No, I think he got his back foot that was up in the air raised. That he makes contact with that. That was the only thing I could figure based on the.
But there was worse contact. There was worse contact with Boup.
Yes.
In the box several times. There was that one where the defender had his arm up on Boop's neck and dragged him down.
Yes. There
Not
were
even looked at.
Not that I'm asking for penalties, but Miazga had some moments where it felt more like a penalty than what Yuya did on this one. So yeah, just you knew it was coming.
The standard, we said this before, the standard should be higher when you are not in a threatening position.
Yeah,
yes.
When you are running parallel to goal at the edge of in the corner of the 18-yard box, it should require more than clipping somebody's heels or incidental contact in order to get a 1 XG opportunity to score, which it is a 1 XG opportunity because, like I have said, Roman Celentano may be the worst PK stopper in the history of goalkeeping.
I don't care about that, to be honest, because I think it is kind of wild to say, on the one hand, you should never miss a PK. And on the other hand, your goalkeeper should
always stop them.
Be stopping them all the time.
I don't want him to stop him all the time. I just want him to stop him occasionally. He never does.
He stopped one in New York. On Harrison, New Jersey.
On what round of kicks was that?
11. Doesn't matter.
Don't worry about it.
I had a thought about. I had a headline that maybe talked about what made this guy fall. It's from Variety. It's a turf dough. Charlotte's Homer surface makes it hard for the FC to spring across the field.
Nice.
If it was really a Variety headline, wouldn't it be all alliteration?
No.
Okay.
It was really a Variety headline, so I guess whoever wrote it forgot about that. I guess.
Yeah, just a real bummer on the day. You knew it was going to happen. It does come after Charlotte players were clearly diving in the box
repeatedly. And you have to give a yellow for that.
Which blows my mind. And again, these, all-knowing, infallible referees that would not make a mistake, unlike the replacement referees, which were maybe trying their best. If a guy goes down and you're going to call no foul, because inherently you're not calling a penalty, he is diving. It is an act of simulation, and it should be punished with a yellow card. Like that weird in-between where they don't let you do either one blows my mind. Unless, I don't know what the weasel, thought is of like, oh, they tripped over their own feet. So it was an innocent mistake on their end. So therefore it's not diving and it's obviously not a foul. Like it's not happening every time, guys. Like these guys are clearly trying to get a penalty. And like, I also think too, I default always to like professional athletes should be assumed to have full control of their body at all times. So like, I don't like this like, oh, he misstepped. Oh, his foot didn't mean to be there. No, it was supposed to be there because it was there. And these guys are expertly good at this.
You're the elite 0.1% of people in terms of physical aptitude. I don't believe you fall over randomly. That just doesn't happen.
I can run up and down a field without just randomly falling over. So I don't know. That's just frustrating to see that again. Overall, though, referee,
I noticed no difference. It was the same shit. It was, like the penalty was harsh, but we had a similar penalty called on us earlier in the year. Bupenza inexplicably got jumped on and was given a yellow card for no discernible reason that I could figure out.
Bupenza's yellow and Obi's yellow were super infuriating.
Obi's yellow, like, I didn't necessarily have a problem with. Like, I understand, like, okay, you blew the whistle and you think that he's, like, kicking the ball while it's under, like, the fouled player after the whistle was blown.
Okay, sure.
But what I didn't understand was why Westwood didn't also get a yellow card for, and honestly, like, I tried to imagine like Obi like shoving a player in the back repeatedly
3 times
across the field, or like Lucho doing that and not getting a card, and it's like kind of I am hard pressed to find a distinction for why a white Englishman gets to just shove a guy who's not, because imagine like what if like Obi wasn't being just like totally calm in that situation,
disengaging from the conflict.
And I saw a headline about it, and you may get this if you listen to the beginning of the podcast. It's the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Charlotte, Smith, and Westwood ramp up British aggression on American soil. So we had Westwood at the time, obviously, like shoving Obi like halfway across the field.
Yep.
After like, I know he kicked him after the play, but that happens all the time.
Yes.
Like, don't act new. Like, don't act like you've never watched a soccer game before. This happens all the time. Sometimes it's carded. Sometimes it's not. Guys, don't every single time jump up and start a fight, And then we also had the situation with Dean Smith, the Charlotte coach, apparently like yelling at Pat Noonan at halftime.
Yeah.
Which came up in the press conference, and he's like, well, I felt like he was trying to influence the referees and I was standing up for my players.
Wait. I didn't know this. Are you allowed to yell and influence referees? Someone should tell literally every coach in literally every other sport that this goes on.
Yeah. And I do have like kind of on good authority that this was really like a nothing burger.
Yeah.
That some Charlotte just fan blogger blew up into something, because I think Charlotte's got a lot more. I'm not sure they get the like genuine local coverage from like establishment media.
So just imagine what would happen.
FC Cincinnati gets. So imagine if the only credentialed media at an FC Cincinnati game was like
the three
Post
of us.
And it was like the Post.
Yeah, and then you would get Kevin's version of events, and you'd get my version of events. And who do you believe my version of what Pat Noonan said would be honest in terms of how panicked he is about the attack right now?
Yeah,
it would be because I have journalistic integrity, unlike some people.
But like obviously, like we did see the Charlotte player dive late in the first half, and it's not a scandal for a coach to ask for a card when an opposing player blatantly dives in the box.
Right.
That's not the first time that's happened, and there is like kind of I am noticing a like kind of pattern of people, and I think this will come again in section 2, or part 2, of people acting brand new when it comes to things happening on a soccer field.
It's been Kevin's point that like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. That you should be able to remember from week to week who are the players that dive. It's like you shouldn't go into a New York Red Bulls game tabula rasa. Like you should be remembering the fact that these people are pricks. They simulate all the time. You can't believe a word that comes out of their mouth, and you should behave accordingly. Why isn't that being talked about on the third team's group text?
If I was officiating a New York Red Bulls game, I would have like prison rules.
Yeah.
I would immediately walk, like the second the game starts, I would immediately walk over to the most diviest motherfucker on the pitch and just hand him a yellow card.
Yep. It's like you'll need this later.
You got to establish who's in charge, right? Early on in these games.
Right.
We can bleep out that curse word I said if you want, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. We're notoriously a PG-rated podcast.
No, I would keep, like, we know for a fact the referees can keep a running scorecard in their head because they fucking hate Matt Miazga.
Right, and they hate Yuya Kubo for some reason.
Right.
It's like, yeah, they do keep track of this stuff. They're just incompetent at it. Right.
They're just tracking the wrong things, the wrong people. Insane. And Boupensis was great too because it was absurd he ends up with the yellow card there, but I forget the player that had fouled Boupenza.
Like makes contact with the ref immediately.
Makes contact with the referee. Also jumps up and you go back and check the tape. Head to head, I think was more of a headbutt than Lucho's headbutt on Aaron Long. Than what we saw. I think that was less 100%. Than what we saw last night. And yet nothing. Immediately grabs the referee in a quasi-friendly gesture, but not totally innocent.
But I was told that any contact to the referee is a 3-game suspension.
100%.
I was told
any
at
contact.
The time, any contact.
These players know not to touch a referee in any way, shape, or form.
If you didn't mean any contact when you said any contact,
he's pleading his case
that I can't say on this podcast.
He's pleading his case. This is not like a high five after the game, guys. Like he's grabbing the referee. It's
just like with Miazga talking to the referees after the Red Bulls game. If context matters, then let's argue context.
Yep.
Don't say it's like 100% you can never touch a referee, because we see players touch referees all the time.
Yeah.
I also just enjoyed this moment too because there was an all-time reaction shot of Kenny Arena
yes.
on the sidelines, just expressing the most disgust with this situation that you can possibly convey without sound to enhance the experience.
It was such a good moment.
It was just say my man Kenny, friend of the podcast, recurring guest, was just beyond sick of this shit.
And I don't blame him.
No.
Yeah. Is there anything else? I know.
I have one unused headline that I'm just going to read at this point because I just didn't find a good time to work it in. I found this in the Daily Caller. I'm fighting back against wokeness. Corey Baird sees the biggest problem with this country as too many people expressing offense.
Nice. I like it.
I wasn't listening.
Oh. It's my understanding that there are other FCC podcasts that have been harping on Noonan using late subs. Is there any
No, it's what Grayson said earlier. It's that they're just fresh legs. There's not great options on the bench. I don't understand why you would go to the bench earlier. The only player on the bench that's worth going to earlier is maybe Dado Valenzuela at this point, just based on what he's shown. Or I could see the argument for possibly bringing on Alvis Powell if you were seeing out a win where you were up multiple goals and just looking to get into a more defensive formation. But other than that, I guess he could go to the bench earlier, but whoever he's taking off is you're replacing a player with a vastly inferior player that just happens to be fresher in most instances.
So two comments on that. One, I kind of resent the fact that you've mentioned that apparently there are other FC Cincinnati podcasts and we're like responding to things that they say.
This is honest to God. I don't know if these things are being said on other podcasts. This is just sort of like gleaning on Twitter.
But two, like, aren't early subs typically attacking?
I would say yes.
What are the attack like? Because it's like to change up the attack, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you could do like a midfield sub.
I will say we had a halftime sub that was purely defensive. So
right, I know, right? But that's not what people usually mean.
Right.
When they talk about early subs.
Right.
And what, you're trying to get Sergio Santos in the game sooner?
Look, there may very well be fans out there that are clamoring.
For me, if you're complaining about not having earlier subs, you're complaining about the state of the striker room.
Right.
This is not a Pat Noonan critique. This is a Brandon Vasquez critique.
You are resenting Brandon Vasquez's life choices.
I'm not going to blame the person who has to replace Brandon Vasquez. I'm blaming Brandon Vasquez and MLS roster rules for this critique. How many more goals do we have if this exact roster also has Barreal and Vasquez? How many goals are we leaving on the table with those two not on this roster? I think we have like 12 through 6.
Yeah, I was going to say 10, but 12 feels okay as well. I don't know. The teams we've played seem very susceptible to the things we used to do well. Part
of that is the familiarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like for Barreal, it's the familiarity. I think it's possible that Luka becomes as dangerous as Barreal.
Yeah.
But for Vasquez, it's the different qualities that he brings to the pitch. And we just don't have anybody who does any of that.
Yeah. Looking at the table.
What do you think about...
Ooh, please.
What do you think about playing like Kip Keller
at striker
as a holding as a hold-up striker?
What can't this man do?
Yeah, obviously I'm for it. I think he should be starting striker actually against Red Bull. They'll never see it coming. It might panic them enough. Yeah, I don't see why not. I think Kendall Waston was our best striker in 2019, so I don't see why the same couldn't be this year. So I'm looking at the Supporter Shield table, and this is just hilarious. We are tied for first. We are in second by 1 point in the goal differential race there. But LA Galaxy has scored 13 goals. We have scored 6. Inter Miami right behind us has scored 14 goals. So just to give you a sense of what the top of the table looks like. But I really like this. Currently in the overall Supporter Shield standing, in 17th and 20th place are 2 teams that have scored 11 goals. Would you rather be St. Louis City and score 11, but also concede 11 and be in 20th place right now? Or would you rather be us?
We're not going to stop complaining about it, but I would rather be us.
Okay.
Like the season, I will, and like, feel free to let this color everything that we say the rest of this, or that I say the rest of the season. I would much rather stay top of the table and be doing exactly what we've been doing than scoring twice as many goals and being like mid-table. Okay.
The defense is badass. That is the top line headline from these first 6 weeks. That's the top line headline from this game, is that this team's defense is just, and we knew this going into the year, they invested heavily into the defense. They are getting more mileage than they thought out of Kip Keller. Miles has been better than advertised, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And this defense, and we don't even point out in this game because it really didn't factor into anything, but Obino Wobodo comes back and plays, I think, like the last 25, 30 minutes of this game, which I'm guessing means he will be available to start this coming weekend. So you are getting back the best defensive midfielder in MLS to play in front of the best defensive backline in MLS. And yeah, they have the luxury of sort of figuring it out as they go from on the offensive standpoint, because you want to talk about teams that have scored 11 goals. I mean, that's great. This team has let in 3. 2 of those have been from sketchy penalty calls. They have let 1 goal in from the run of play in 6 matches played. They are far and away, in terms of defense, the best defensive team in this league. And they're going to keep it. There's no reason to believe that won't continue. Like, that is a fully formed, fully operational battle station in terms of squad depth, in terms of like portion of the team. So yeah, I would much rather be us than anyone else, because we're the best team in the league at keeping the ball out of the back of the net.
Yeah, and we said this on the podcast before, and it's still true. The luxury of having the quality of defense that we have is the offense gets the time to figure it out.
Yep.
And I know I said I'm pushing the panic button. I agree. I'm still pushing the panic button on the offense. But, you know, a couple games from now, if they do figure it out, this team is
over.
Like unstoppable, right? Like this team's going to be like a home playoff, like a top 4 team in the East.
Yeah.
Even if the offense doesn't like fully figure it out.
There is something hilarious.
If they do figure it out,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking the double, right?
Yeah.
And I'm concerned, I'm panicked about the offense, all that. But like, grand scheme of things, they could struggle until September. If they figured out the last week of September, this team is making an MLS Cup run. Like, I'm not going to like it, but that's like the reality of it, right?
Yeah. I like the idea that Albright has 2 U22 strikers already signed, and he's just waiting for the mid-season rule change to kick in for them to both show up, and it's game on.
I would like one now.
Okay,
now
sure.
would be nice.
There is something hilarious, though, about being a team that is so good that we only score when we need to, that would just like sit around and toy with teams. And yeah, some BS penalties will get us, and you might sneak one in, but we'll score exactly as many goals as we need to be in first place.
Like, it's not sustainable to win a lot of games by 1 goal. But what if you're like the Manchester City of center backs?
Right. What if in fact it is sustainable? What would that look like?
Yeah. What if you do it over the course of like 2, 3, 4 seasons?
Yeah, right. Not just one lucky season, folks. Right. We're looking at 2 seasons of this shit.
Yeah, it's like,
better score now.
We're just remaking the Baltimore Ravens defense in soccer. It's just minus the guy that killed the dude.
It's like if the Baltimore Ravens had like Pat Mahomes, but he like only tried when they were down 3.
Right. He's on the bench until the 4th quarter. Well, we want to give the other team a sporting opportunity here. Come on.
This was actually the plot to Rocky 2, I think.
Oh God. Well, I think that's going to do it for this match. Part 2, we've got some news around the league, and then in part 3 we have a Patreon question. So let's get on over to part 2. And before we get into the next part of the episode, I want to tell you about our other sponsor, Cincy Shirts. And if you're going to sit here and tell me that you've never heard of Cincy Shirts, I'm going to sit here and tell you I don't believe you, because these guys have been with FC Cincinnati from the very beginning. And we here at the Post, well, we are just huge fans of their work. They have tons of really cool FC Cincinnati gear, shirts, hoodies, hats, all sorts of cool stuff. Go over to their website, check out what they are selling. You want to go to cincyshirts.com. That is Cincy with a Y, or you can just click the link in the description of this episode. And when you go there, use the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, and they will knock 10% off your next order. They have MLS and MLSPA licensed FCC gear available online or in their 3 retail locations in Hyde Park, Fort Mitchell, or Loveland. And I can attest to this. I've used this before. If they don't have your size on the shelf, they can probably print you one on the spot in the store. So again, huge thank you to Cincy Shirts for sponsoring the podcast, and a huge thank you to you, dear listener, for using that promo code. All right, we are back, part 2, looking around the league a little bit, and we got a little bit of a rundown here, some topics to dive into. I'm going to go in order that I see them up here on my screen, which means we lead off with FC Cincinnati legend, I mean, arguably the greatest striker to play for this team until Brandon Vasquez showed up. Kai Kamara is on his way to LAFC. This is now his 13th team. I'm doing that from the hip. I don't have.
They count us, right? Even though he never actually played for us.
I don't think they count us.
No, that's
unfortunately, which is bullshit in my opinion. He technically was on our books for all of 30 seconds. Now, if people are not familiar with the Kai Kamara jokes, just for whatever reason, Kai Kamara was officially selected in the 2019 expansion draft by FC Cincinnati. However, in the expansion draft presentation where Alan Koch was in MLS Studios, in explaining that he's picking Kai Kamara, he also explained that FC Cincinnati was then immediately trading Kai Kamara for Kendall Waston from the Vancouver Whitecaps. So that is how Waston ended up on our team.
Was that how it was done? I thought that they traded him for an international spot. Is that we just got the spot to sign Kendall Waston was my recollection.
I think so. My understanding was that we traded for Kendall Waston, but part of the deal for trading for Kendall Waston was that we picked Kai Kamara in the expansion draft and then immediately traded Kai Kamara to Colorado. Yeah, for basically a international spot, because Waston was not made available by Vancouver
in the expansion draft.
Yes,
that expansion draft is there. You could do an entire podcast episode on that expansion draft of just some.
I have Kai Kamara as having played for 11 MLS teams.
Okay.
I want to be on his plaque when he gets inducted into the MLS Hall of Fame, though. I really do believe that we need to be included on there. But that expansion draft was wild. They selected Kai Kamara. They traded him immediately. I think Koch broke news that we'd signed Greg Garza.
Yeah, even though he wasn't supposed to.
Even though he wasn't supposed to. So he announced a signing before the league paperwork had finished. We selected Hassan Nadam. Just, I think, based on seeing him once in the USL playoffs the year before.
Yeah.
And there's a rumor, and I don't know how true this is, that the pick of Eric Alexander was a panic pick and that Koch said the wrong name live on the broadcast.
I would believe that because if I remember correctly, Luke Sassano, who was functionally our GM at the time, his wife was giving birth at that time and then wasn't available on draft day. So I think I think some of the support systems weren't quite there for FCC.
It was in other words, it was a well-functioning
yes.
organization, as it continues to be.
I do have, this is from WCPO. So if somebody can find a better source, please let me know. FC Cincinnati made its 5 picks Tuesday, trading one of them, Vancouver forward Kai Kamara. So we did draft Kai Kamara. That's what I got wrong. We draft Kai Kamara to Colorado for an international spot. During a live stream show from MLS Studio, FC Cincinnati later used the trade for an international spot to acquire defender Kendall Waston.
Right. So I do think that it was like a total combo that was ultimately with the idea of the team getting Kendall Waston.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
who was really good for us.
Our best player.
I want to say, and frankly, if we had like 2019, Kendall Waston would start on this team.
I think so. It'd definitely be the third. He'd be the third.
Right. He'd be behind Matt and Miles.
He was a little slow was only his problem. He would thrive.
Like 2019 Kendall Waston would thrive in the setup in the 3 center back setup this team has.
And he'd solve our striker issues. So there you go. Yeah. I don't see why he wouldn't have.
Kai Kamara is also just a fascinating MLS player. Yes. I think that he is third all
He's
time.
He's going to pass. He needs 1 goal to tie and 2 goals to pass Landon Donovan. On the all-time MLS goal scoring rankings. He needs 30 to pass Wando, so I don't think he's going to get 30.
I mean, you got to name an award after him, right? You gave Landon Donovan the MVP trophy.
Give him the Golden Boot.
The Kai Kamara Golden Boot, or the Kai Kamara Most Improved Player Award or something.
Give Kai Kamara the Comeback Player of the Year.
Because he keeps coming back.
Because he came back from living in Africa for a year. He just fucked off for a while.
Yeah.
There was a period of time where he was literally out of contract and he was just living back in Sierra Leone or whatever.
Yeah.
And somebody, I forget who, just pulled him out of retirement.
Which is wild as well. If people aren't familiar with his story, came to the U.S. as a refugee from Sierra Leone. And it was just he made his way into college soccer and eventually into the USL system and got picked up. I remember his time playing with Columbus Crew, especially his second stint with them, where he had a public falling out with Higuain there, where they were fighting over who got to take a penalty. And I think he was traded the next day.
What a career. Hold on here. It was Columbus Crew, San Jose Earthquakes, Houston Dynamo, Sporting KC, does a lone stint at Norwich City, Middlesbrough, Columbus Crew, New England Revolution, Vancouver, Colorado, Minnesota, a club in Helsinki, then back to Montreal, Chicago Fire, and now LAFC. That's
so
some good. That is the MLS equivalent of David Weathers or the middle reliever that just bounces around Major League Baseball for the 20 years. Left arm, have gun, will travel.
He's the oh my God, Harvard quarterback. Why can I not?
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He's Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I like that. I'll do that. Yeah.
He's
massive
always,
stat accumulator.
Yeah, for whatever situation you're in, he always feels like a good option. Yeah, so good on Kai making it to LAFC, where, I mean, it's a good team. And he'll probably score bunches of goals there. And I got to say, for LAFC, too, just to get him 2 goals and pass Landon Donovan on the all-time list, it's kind of a nice little FU to your crosstown rivals. Yeah.
So it says that when Kai played for Colorado in 2019, he scored 11 goals, which was the most for Colorado since Omar Cummings in 2010. And in 2010, Omar scored 14 goals for Colorado. And It looks like the Colorado single season record is 16. So Omar's up there.
Wow.
2 FC legends, Omar and Kai, are up there for Colorado.
Wow.
I love that.
Love that for us.
Anything else on Kai before we move it along here?
No.
Nah, sign him.
Sign him.
Yeah.
Get those goals. Kai Kamara has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever.
Kai would do well on this team. Like, we could do worse than Kai Kamara. We do. We currently do.
I was going to say we did. No, Manchester City signs 14-year-old from the Philadelphia Union, and boy, this is how.
So Kavan Sullivan, is that?
I think it's Cavan.
Whatever.
That's it. Sullivan, 14-year-old, signed from Philadelphia.
Chris Albright's cousin, right?
Let's say yes.
Sure.
They're probably
if he's
all
Chris
related.
Albright's cousin, why isn't he on this team? Christ.
Yeah, hey, what the hell? But no, Manchester
He's
City.
Chris Albright's cousin.
I am so mad now. Why did you not recruit him, Chris? Is Chris Albright letting it slip? Many people are asking. No, Manchester City bought his rights. Basically, they get first dibs on him when he turns 18. So then he'll be allowed to transfer internationally. I believe the number is about $4 million. Philadelphia has a hefty sell-on percentage. Whatever he does with Manchester City.
Holy shit! You were joking. He really is his cousin.
Yeah, I wasn't joking.
I thought that was like for sure. Like there was a bit going on here. I just didn't get.
No, I don't do bits. I mean everything I say seriously.
From the moment I log on. So, what I find interesting about this, I always get a kick out of this, is you see in the Premier League plenty of times promising academy kids at ages 15, 16 make the first team roster. If this 14-year-old is this good, I don't even think he's playing for Philly 2.
He is.
Is he playing for 2?
He played for Philly's.
Okay.
He has played for Philly 2.
He played for the U17 squad.
He played for the U17.
That FC Cincinnati just beat.
Yep.
Okay.
With our Hoffenheim guys.
Right. We're calling in ringers to win youth tournaments, which I appreciate.
Call them up. Let's go.
Yeah. Why are you not on our first team?
But he had I think he had an assist.
Okay.
In a 2-team game like last weekend, and the assist was like pretty nice, to be honest. Like it was like a long, like perfectly weighted pass. It was like
too good.
No joke, like pretty nice with it.
What I love about these, so he signs for, what is the deal? It's like he 2.1 million or something like that.
It's like 2 million, but then like 5 million if certain incentives are hit,
and he gets to stay in the United States and play with Philly till he turns 18, and then he moves over at that point.
Unless like another, I think after there's like something where if he like after 16, because he has a European passport, another City Football Group team is allowed to like bring him in, and there's escalators that go to Philly in that situation, whatever.
So my favorite part about all this stuff is this dovetails with another story that I loved in MLS. Are you guys familiar with Julian Hall's story at New York?
No.
Okay.
Julian Hall, the guy that wrote Downton Abbey?
Yeah, same guy. Crazy.
Yeah, okay.
Playing soccer. So the New York Red Bulls have this kid, Julian Hall, who's a 15-year-old homegrown. But he has been unable to be on the bench for games this year because in the state of New Jersey, their child labor laws specify that kids under 16 can't work past 6 p.m. So he was only able to be on the bench for games that were 2 p.m. starts because otherwise they would be in violation of child labor laws to have this kid working past
just
6
don't pay
p.m.
him.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Right? There's no problem with that.
So he's just an intern or a trialist.
Yeah, just an intern.
Child labor is only a problem if they're getting paid, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm hearing is that everyone should relocate their 2 teams to Arkansas. in Missouri, in
Cincinnati's
Indiana.
probably fine. We have Steven.
I don't know what Ohio's up to these days with child. I love.
I'm sure it's real messed up. Like whatever it is, I'm sure it's real bad.
I just remember when I was working at the movie theater back in the day, when I was managing at the concession stand, you had to know which kids were working that were under a certain age because there were laws about how often they had to have breaks versus other people.
Dude, I was paying union dues at Kroger at 14.
Yep, same. The green name tag.
I just always thought it was funny that you might like have to look down the bench and think like, oh shit, Steven got here. What time did he get here? What time did he clock in? Do we owe him a break in the 30th minute? He has to take a 15-minute meal break or a half-hour break in the middle of the game.
I love the idea of built-in hydration breaks are just MLS's way of hiding the mandatory breaks for underage workers.
All right, I get it. You're looking for talent everywhere, and City Football Group has so much money that this is walking around change.
Yeah.
In case this kid pans out.
I love the stuff where they're like, he's the best 14-year-old in the world.
Sure.
Cool, man.
All right.
I don't know. So was Freddie Adu. What does this get you?
This is a gross part of soccer to me that we're signing 14-year-olds to pro contracts. It's like this kid needs to figure out passing algebra. He doesn't need to be.
So I think it's fine that Philly signed him.
Right.
Because it's a homegrown deal. Apparently, It's like the most lucrative homegrown deal in MLS history. And he showed up to practice this week wearing like the Nike Prada shoes or whatever, which is like a little weird. Like
you still have teammates, man. Like chill out.
Like you have a future. You're 14, whatever. Like I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but
I will.
Like
I will.
I watched the movie Honey Boys, so I'm very concerned about like
I will
child.
I'll tell you how to live your
stuff.
life, and that's whatever the car that your parents are driving you to practice in. Spinners. The most blinged out soccer mom van, like a Honda Odyssey with spinners. Like make it look like Exhibit had access to this car.
But like you had like Messi go over to Barcelona at like 13 or whatever, right?
Right.
And then you had when Tom Bogert, especially when he like tweeted his story about the Kevin Sullivan deal. People were like, "Oh, he needs to go test himself in Europe." I'm like, he is 14,
right?
He signed a deal with the European team. Let him like kiss a girl. Like let him like
or a boy. It's cool. Whatever he wants to do.
Like let him like be 14, 15. 16 for like a second before we're like, oh, he needs to move to Europe and live by himself and test himself at the highest levels of soccer. By all accounts, that is coming.
Right.
Let him stay by his family.
Get him out of there.
Let him stay by his family until he can, work in New Jersey.
I want him to stay.
Or until he can like sign a contract with his dad.
I want him to stay just for this reason. I am really looking forward to people losing their minds about how Philly is ruining this 14-year-old. Like they have any idea whatsoever. It's like, this man hasn't gone through puberty yet. You have no idea what kind of soccer player he's going to be. You know what could happen? He could have a growth spurt and end up being 6'5" and being fucking useless to the U.S. men's national team.
Like the he needs to go to Europe right now thing.
Oh,
it is one of them. It is up there. And this is a high bar. It is one of the most deranged things I've seen on soccer Twitter.
Here's how you know these people don't know what they're talking about too. U.S. youth teams regularly dominate these youth tournaments. You see it in the Youth World Cups. U.S. teams do very well. You see it in all of these like youth invitationals. There's a big one that happens in Dallas every year. There's a big one that happens in France every year. The U.S. teams do really, really well. It's actually been a sort of like weird, mystifying part of the sport.
We do really good until like 16, 17.
Yeah. And something changes, and it's probably something to do with access to pro teams, but it just falls apart and we lose the edge. But we have an advantage generally, we being
Atlanta
the United
U15s
States.
like today beat Manchester United U15s 4-0.
Yeah. Maybe those guys should go challenge themselves in the U.S. How about that? come play a weekend tournament in Disney World, guys. Let's see how you really stack up against the pros. But no, here's my thing on this. Stay woke. This kid sucks. And here's my idea. Manchester City has regularly been pumping way too much money into MLS on transfers that in no way, shape, or form pan out to skew the market in favor of MLS. Zach Steffen, Mix Discarud, the games that they played with Tati Castellanos, there's a lot of weird nonsense that Manchester City does. I'm sure this kid's fine, but they're setting the bar for good 14-year-olds in the U.S. pretty fucking high for what it needs to be.
So here's something I want to spend literally a minute on. I just want your reaction, but you brought it up, Kevin. So,
please.
Apparently, based on info online, Tati Castellanos has gotten American citizenship.
Ooh.
Where does he sit? Where would he? Because he's not going to feature for Argentina. Right. Where would he sit on the U.S. striker depth chart?
Okay, so hang on. Greg's or an abstract U.S. striker depth chart?
Where do you rate him on the U.S. striker depth chart?
I mean, as far as I can tell, he's the most productive striker at the highest level in the pool. Yeah. I haven't been tracking his career the last month. I don't think anybody else has had a hat trick on Real Madrid. Right. That's what I'm saying. And I'm sure Josh Sargent and whoever else is doing fine in the championship, but this guy is leading the attack in a top 3 side in Spain.
Now is it Lazio?
Oh shit. Okay. I'm clearly not paying attention.
He's only got 4 goals and 3 assists on the season.
That's it? God. Bum.
That's it. So
he's sitting behind. Right in.
He's sitting far behind. He's sitting far behind even Pulisic in that league.
Yeah, no, he's right in line with all of our strikers.
Right, he's kind of in line with Ballo, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Man, in my head, he was still at what's the Spanish Corona? Yeah. Nope, he's not. All right, well then he sucks. Again, gamesmanship from Manchester.
I think, for me, call him in.
Over Brandon Vasquez. Now I don't know what this podcast is.
Seriously.
Moving on. One of my favorite stories that came out over the weekend. And Chief, I may lean on you a little bit more on this one.
He had 13 goals in La Liga.
That's what I'm saying, though. That's
balling.
That's the Tati I know.
All right, so go to the next story.
Yes, Crew Nashville fan drama. There was allegedly a Crew fan.
Well, here I'll read the tweets. So
please read the tweets.
So this starts out with drama being drummed up by at Caleb Williams 13. Well, come on. If your Twitter name is another athlete's name and his number, that's sad. That's just absolutely sad. So the tweet reads, "My little sister is at the Nashville SC game with friends who sit in their supporters section. She's wearing a Crew shirt. Told her to be ready to turn it inside out or relocate, but security took her shirt, leaving her with just a sports bra. This is beyond unacceptable."
Before we dive into this, I don't have a sister. Both of you have sisters. How old is your sister before you stop calling her your little sister?
I think she's 15, 14. Once we're both adults, that's a little weird to say my little sister. I guess maybe if you have multiple sisters and you have to specify my older sister, but I would still say my younger sister. I wouldn't say my little sister.
That's a weird thing that jumps out at me about this tweet. So
this leads into just an absolute, just a Donnybrook in the mentions of Crew fans talking about how awful this is, how what's with Nashville seems like every week there's a new issue with their fan base. And how supporters groups why do they have to deal with this in soccer? Why can't you just sit next to somebody else and be in peace? Well, then somebody comes into the mentions that says, sheds a little light on this story. I was 2 rows behind this happening. This is a complete fabrication of the events that took place. Security officer offered several appropriate solutions that didn't come close to strip. Also clearly stated that no opposing apparel is allowed in the supporters section when tickets are purchased. This person went on to clarify further. The person made a fairly decent spectacle of themselves in section 109. So to jump on here and act like the entire section didn't see and hear what went down is ridiculous. She also did eventually show back up without a shirt, but it was extremely evident this was 100% her idea.
I don't know if you have these tweets queued up as well, but this person also got super indignant, and somebody else did as well, I think, in the subsequent comments.
Oh, it got deep. There was a person here, Dark Blue Buckeye with a Ukrainian flag as his name, Oxford Buckeye on Twitter. Again, a quote, no opposing apparel restriction is absurd. That's what you'd expect at some kind of a Nazi rally, not a soccer game. Nashville fans and ownership need to grow up.
Which shout out to Paul in the Discord for pointing out that is, in fact, probably a rule at Nazi rallies.
And I responded in the Discord that my understanding was that the Nazis actually required opposing apparel.
That's one of the rules, just not at the rally. It's
you didn't need the full kit, just the captain's armband.
I'm sure the rule applied still if you attended the rally.
These stories always make me laugh because every single supporters section in MLS that I have ever seen, they all have the exact same rules. You are not allowed to be wearing opposing team's colors. Like, is that like a hardo thing? No, it's not like it is in Europe where you're going to get physically beaten if you show up wearing the wrong colors. I mean,
but you should. That's the kind of support that we are striving to get.
Parody.
We are trying to. We don't have a real culture in the U.S. If we had a real culture, we would have people getting murdered in supporters section. We would have people shooting off ICBMs out of the thing to celebrate promotion from the 3rd division to the 2nd division.
What's really funny is this goes along with that one account that posted the pictures of the LAFC fans talking about what is this shit. It's like, I don't know, man. It's Americans having fun and not stabbing each other for wearing the wrong colors. It's like,
the LAFC fans looked fine. Yeah, I don't know what the.
But that the Europeans, like the European mind cannot comprehend attending a soccer match and not stabbing someone wearing the wrong colors.
The European mind also can't comprehend like having people with like different kind of last names representing your nationality.
Or
heaven forbid the shade of their skin is an ever so slight different hue.
But every supporter section in MLS has this because you know what? It's just like, it's fun that you can go to a game and have one spot in the stadium where there isn't some annoying asshole rooting for the other team behind you. That is the worst experience at a sporting event, is that when you are at your home stadium watching your home team and there's some ding dong sitting right behind you wearing the opposing team's jersey and cheering loudly for everything they do, and God forbid that team win, and you have to sit and listen to this chuckle fuck celebrate, cheer, high five with his one loser friend that's there to see that. What I love about FC Cincinnati, what I love about soccer in general, is that if you want a guaranteed way to not experience that, you can go to the supporters section and just exist in a space that is yours. Other places in the stadium, it's whoever signs up, whoever buys a ticket, whoever's there. But in that space, in the home supporters section and in the away supporters section, if you're traveling, you are guaranteed an experience where you don't have to deal with some dipshit that decides I'm going to show up and be different and try and ruin everybody's good time.
Yeah. I I like it. I like it a lot. I like not having that. And I well and truly think that this should be a rule that especially the NFL should adopt, because we have seen, everybody has seen fist fights in the stands. You've seen in Oakland in particular, you've seen stabbings. You've seen arguments just spiral out of control in NFL stadiums. It would be really nice if all of the Steelers fans who come to Paul Brown Stadium once a year, if they could just be, shoved up in an upper deck corner somewhere. That'd be really nice. I think everybody would appreciate that.
So I don't like the idea of having all opposing of like banning opposing colors like they do in like Europe all throughout the stadium. I like how it's like restricted to supporter sections in MLS stadiums, because look, roast me. When I've been to away matches, I've just bought like regular tickets because I like to have like decent seats. And I'm happy to just like kind of be polite and in my good seats.
Chief, it's the asshole you were talking about.
I can confirm Grayson was miserable in the away support section at lower.com field just because the seats were bad. He just didn't like the viewing angle more than anything else.
But like I talked about this in part one, like acting like you didn't know that you couldn't wear opposing colors in the supporter section of the home team it's like people acting like brand new. Like they've never seen, like they've just birthed yesterday and they have like never been involved in like MLS before. I thought the whole crew thing was that they were the first MLS team, right? Like,
right.
It's insane. I would bet, I said this in the Discord, I bet my entire FanDuel account that this person had options other than stripping down to her sports bra to stay in the section. I think it's good that they have the supporter sections, that they do enforce the rules. In fact, like, if anything, like you have even less of an excuse, because like now there's been all types of drama about like whether whether teams are allowing Messi jerseys in their supporter sections, right?
Yeah.
Like,
real quick here. Oh, please. I was just gonna read from the Nordecke Code of Conduct. Here, point 5, wear crew colors. Any opposing team's jersey or colors will not be allowed in the Nordecke. Anyone in violation of this policy will be moved to a different seating section.
Oh shit! Is this Nazi Germany?
I mean, it's got a German name.
Yeah.
So this is like a lot of the reaction to like, stuff that happened in the game yesterday. That's this. It's the president of the PSRA. Calling like enforcement of the league's public criticism policy North Korea.
Godwin's law is just in full effect in this entire soccer community.
It's just like it's incredibly dishonest. And this is like really something that sets me off, is when people are like acting like stuff has like acting like stuff is unprecedented when like there's like a clear like this is like clearly how like it's always been done.
Like, where have you guys been?
Like if you want to make me mad, really,
I'm taking notes right now. I'm taking notes right now, baby.
Now. It's to like it's to like act like something that's like kind of always gone one way has always been the other way.
Call that gaslighting.
Yeah, I really, really get triggered when I feel like people are like being like intentionally dishonest to me. And that's what this supporter section thing feels like. It's what it felt like when the president of the PSRA was acting like the public criticism policy was like North Korea. And it's what I felt like last night watching the game, where people were like, oh, well, Boup kicked the ball after the whistle, so he deserved to get his ass beat.
Right.
like it's like sorry, this is gonna get picked up. That me hitting my mic is gonna get picked up on the broadcast here. But like that's like really like I just want like I try to apply consistent rules to like my understanding of the world. And when people like mess around with that, it just like really messes with me.
So I have an idea and I have a proposal. So how do we can solve this and sort of like we apparently need to teach crew fans a lesson here. My proposal would be this: is
beat
that
them.
Well, no, that's not going to happen. We've established that already. Is that we need to make sure for Hell is Real that we buy up as many of the Nordecki tickets as possible and all show up in FC Cincinnati gear, because apparently that's okay.
Yeah.
And if they tell us we're not allowed to wear that, I think we all
get to firebomb them.
No, I was just gonna wear a sports bra.
Because that's Nazi.
That's Nazi. It's Dresden. There we go.
Yeah, we get to treat them like the Nazis.
Claim that there's a nuanced view of their position. No, I say
I don't want to alienate our listeners.
Our German friends. We go tarps off in the Nordecki. We take that, we wear the kits in, and then we go tarps off for the match. And then they will have to know anyone that's in there not wearing a shirt is an FC Cincinnati supporter.
What
being
if
a better fan.
What if we tattoo the orange kit on our torso?
I don't know about you, but if I take my shirt off, I already have the canvas kit tattooed on my body, which is...
I've got the diamonds from the USL. It's very... the old logo, which I don't think they'll put on the broadcast.
Oh, I just meant my body is just already a sort of vague off-white color. Solid.
I do think we should have... this is completely off topic of that, but I do think we should have a no sleeves in the Bailey day at some point. Just like... or tarps off in the Bailey.
For pride.
For any day. Be proud of who you look like.
For pride, like no sleeves, no bottoms.
I think you get away with 50%
of that. It's vest only day in the Bailey.
That's the way. If the offensive blows keep continuing, it's got to be tarps off in the Bailey for the boys, I think.
Yeah, I like this. This
is important.
Yeah. Moving on to the next very important topic here. David Goss leaves Extra Time, and I'll just go ahead and say fired until somebody can tell me that is not what happened.
It had a fired vibe to it.
Sure did.
Yeah. We wouldn't ordinarily cover things happening on Extra Time, but like Kevin, talk about it.
Yeah. So this is weird enough. So David Goss, longtime co-host of Extra Time. Goss is one of the more knowledgeable hosts, particularly on youth soccer. He's been a guy that has covered MLS Next Pro, and even before that, the sort of previous iterations, he was a regular commentator in a previous iteration of the Open Cup broadcast rights. He was a commentator for New York Red Bulls 2 games, I think, even in USL. So he's definitely somebody that had his sort of finger on the pulse of youth soccer in MLS. He was also a super knowledgeable guy and a super hardworking guy. If you ever look up MLS Daily in your podcasts, he for years hosted literally a daily podcast about MLS. He was posting content every single day talking about this league. Like I said, super knowledgeable, and was kind of the perfect hybrid between Andrew Wiebe being the goofball host and the Matt Doyle who was super jaded and too cool for anything. And then Goss was perfectly right down the middle. Well, I had to pick up on this. Former Extra Time producer and editor Ben Baer tweets out or quote tweets the Extra Time tweet saying that Goss was leaving with a section of the article from The Athletic that was the anonymous quotes from GMs from around the league with a particular portion highlighted. I'll read the whole quote. I'll read the part that is highlighted here. This was talking about coverage of the league, particularly on the Apple platform. This anonymous GM said, quote, "They need more coaches and maybe former chief soccer officers." And this is the part that's highlighted, that talk about player movement and roster rather than just former players. They said, overall, the broadcasts need a deeper understanding of rosters and some of the young players. That's the end of the highlighted portion. He does add, this GM does add, Doyle brings it, but some former players need more work to understand that. Basically taking a shot at the direction that they may be heading with this, that Goss being removed represents a further distancing themselves from that desire from that GM. It's interesting because so much of this league is covered by state media that we're losing one of the more, I don't know, at least certainly more prominent voices, but also I would say one of the better voices in state media.
Well, the problem is that, like, so we had this like meta conversation on the Discord, and I threw it out on Twitter as well, just about whether or not people consume MLS media. Do you consume media about the league in general, or are you siloed into your FC Cincinnati fandom? And if you've got an answer to that and you want to shoot me a message on Twitter or something like that, I'm still interested to hear about this. But the problem is that for so many of the responses, the only real media people seem to consume about MLS, about the league as a whole, is Extra Time. Mm-hmm. It is the sole occupant of this space providing content about the league, and losing one of the best voices on that. It's just, I don't understand how that helps their product. I don't understand how it helps their fan base. I hope he starts something else and goes back to doing something, because you look at this league and the content that's generated about the league as a whole and the league just in general, it sucks. And it sucks, especially compared to the other peer leagues. Like, there are tons of national media outlets that provide national coverage, podcasts, articles, the like, on baseball. On the NFL, there's billions. The NBA, there's tons. Even the NHL has tons of really prominent podcasts and news sources. The Hockey News was like a full-on newspaper that my dad used to get. And MLS just doesn't have that, and it doesn't have the overhead to lose a guy like Goss. This sucks, and I don't. It feels like unless there's some weird scandal we're gonna find out about, it feels like a really unforced error on the part of the league and Apple.
Yeah, it's definitely a dip in quality for league media, and like I'll be honest, like I don't listen to like basically any league media at this point, because I just am not a fan. I just think it's too captured. But Goss, like the Goss theorem was like a fun bit. For people who don't know, it was that like young foreign players like need like a year to adapt to MLS before they like really take off, which Brenner was like a Goss theorem player.
Yeah. Barrial. Yeah.
Yeah, Barrial too. And man, I don't know what their plan is.
It's weird.
Like, it's the people who like have been added to broad, like, I don't watch MLS 360. I don't listen to Extra Time. You know, unless somebody like tells me like, oh, you should listen to like
this part
of Extra Time.
Yeah.
I find it really hard to get into like any MLS league-wide media because I just don't trust it.
Yeah,
And
it's all access, and it's not state run. It's depending on the access that being state run adjacent requires. All right, so let me ask
David Goss was like somebody who like I liked to hear when he was around.
Yeah.
Like he was like a good, like I listened to him on Laurel's podcast.
Yep.
And he was a good guest. Like he's a good person to have as a content creator, whatever the fuck that is, or like, but he's just like, he's somebody who observes and reports,
Yes.
like,
yes.
and we have a lot. There's like Kevin, you brought up the critique of the Apple TV where it's like foreign players and stuff. And like,
yeah,
man, like I can't, like every time I've like tried to look at that like MLS 360 or like the wrap up show or whatever, I dial in and it feels like somebody who like showed up yesterday, looked at like 5 seconds of tape and like had to say something.
yeah.
Like there's no passion to it and there's no like depth of knowledge. It's just names.
Yeah.
All right, so here's my question to you specifically, Kevin, but also Grayson. Sure. Is there a future for this league if they don't start making more fans of the league and not just your individual team? Because I feel like that is so unique to MLS right now, is that there is no greater, like, even if you're a Reds fan, there is still some knowledge of, Shohei Ohtani, the gambling scandal. There are national narratives being driven about baseball. Your college team, you still think about your conference, and most people are aware of things going on. It just feels like that this is something that just is holding this league back, is that because no one covers it and because no one talks about it and because the outlets for coverage on this league are so mediocre, that it's very easy for it to be out of sight, out of mind, unless your specific team has something going on with it. And I feel like there's the upward trajectory of this league is capped as a result.
Yeah, it's funny because the one potential solution is never stop expanding until you have a dedicated local following in every top 100 media market, which is, I don't know, maybe one solution here. But yeah, it has to be league wide. Like, you have to turn FC Cincinnati fans into MLS fans. The NFL, I think, benefited greatly from any number of things, but I think fantasy football is an interesting tool that is used there. The NBA's free agency player movement is super interesting. You have this in other sports as well, but in the NBA in particular, people using salary cap tools and websites to build that. Like, there are other ways to sort of engage your fandom that makes you a fan of the league, that the league has like made every single decision possible to make it harder to be a fan of the league. And I don't know why they continue to do this. Even if you were, let's say you were a huge MLS fan going into this season, the Open Cup news takes a lot of the wind out of your sails. And, there's all sorts of other little decisions that just make it harder to be a fan. And then on top of that, the media ecosystem isn't great.
It feels like the league wants people to be extremely casual fans.
Yeah.
Who spend money on the league, but are not interested in anything about it. They're not interested in like the storylines, not interested in like how the teams are run. They're like very passively interested in like having like 4 players that they remember from the Champions League 10 years ago in the league. Like, that feels like the business model
right
of the league.
If that was gonna be the business model, like, you just want to be a brand, then why is your product so, like, the kits are horrible? Like, I would understand if you just want to be a brand, then invest a lot of money designing really dope kits and shit for people to wear.
A lot of people don't want to invest money.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's also the problem is
but like the way you like the NFL has like well, let's just stick with the NFL. The NFL has like extremely critical media.
Yeah.
It's got extremely invasive media. It's got a huge ecosystem of people that are trying to figure out every single thing about every single team and every single personality around every single team. And it's the biggest sports product in the world.
yes.
Like,
Even the
I
Premier
don't
League
get
has
it.
a bit of that, right? Like,
well, the Premier League has like an extremely invasive
Yes.
media
Right.
presence in England.
right. The English tabloids are notorious, right? Like that's like their thing. And yet the Premier League's best marketing tool in a lot of ways are those same tabloids, are those same, media outlets.
It is marketing. It is.
Yes.
It is.
It drives the stories. It drives the narratives.
Freaking Laurel talking to agents
Yeah. It's
about
good.
like player news.
That's good.
That's marketing for the team. It gets you in. It's keeping you top of mind.
Yes. It's good.
Like, I know it's not like, maybe you don't think it like paints you in like the best possible light, but it keeps you top of mind.
The NFL,
And if you're winning, people are still going to generally think positively of you.
right. Meanwhile, the NFL has players killing themselves to intentionally preserve their brains to be studied by science, and we just keep on keeping on with that one.
Right,
Like, I can't imagine a more negative press, story surrounding a single sport. Like, not even boxing has this level, and the NFL is still the NFL.
Yeah.
It's just wild to me that MLS at every opportunity makes a worse decision. I want to say too that Extra Time, as we said, is probably the most consumed piece of league-wide media, including
It's got to be the most.
including every podcast, sure, but any sort of segment on ESPN FC. I don't even think they mention MLS anymore.
don't.
Or
Barely.
any of the other video content. But Extra Time was a video and audio produced podcast up until this season, and they've stopped doing the video portion of it. It was historically available on YouTube. Then they were also putting it up on Apple TV's Season Pass, and now they've stopped it completely. They've reduced the number of hosts that they've had over time.
They've changed
slowly.
those hosts up. Like they
Yes.
used to be like better. Like, I'll be honest, they used to be better hosts. Like,
Yeah.
the rotation has not been better for the product.
Charlie Davies and Kalen Carr were former players, have long histories in this sport, in this league. Bobby Warshaw as well. Extra Time is much older than this current cast, but it is sad to see this sort of flagship product being picked away at.
And it's one of those things too where it doesn't even rank in the top 200 of Apple podcasts for sports. Not even just
Right.
generally. For sports, it doesn't even rank in the top 200. And, it's a thing where a rising tide lifts all boats. And if Extra Time isn't your thing, there's no alternative.
That's the problem. Yeah.
There's no alternative. It would be like in the FCC ecosystem, if there was just one podcast and it was CST. If that wasn't for you, then I don't think this club would do as well, that there's not other media options. It's like,
But
if
it
Pat
would
Brennan-
be like it's worse, right?
yeah,
Because CST for FC Cincinnati is probably in a better position than Extra Time is like for like league wide stuff.
It's the fan show brought to you by, two media interns at FCC, and they're the only ones that are controlling or, putting out
right.
FCC content.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
yeah.
like you're, yeah.
It's
But yes, otherwise I agree with Chief. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah,
No,
it's not good. You need alternatives. And I would say because there isn't a very good alternative. And if there is, by all means, hit us up. I haven't seen one. It allows Apple to do the, the classic in-shitification of everything that we've seen, which is, cut it down to the bones. It doesn't need to be video. They don't need that many hosts. They can reduce the number of hosts. They can reduce the amount of editing that they do. All of these things until you just have a barely, the bare minimum viable product. And that's what they'll put out. And it'll still be downloaded in huge numbers because people don't really have anything else to go off of.
But if you want to find out about other teams, that's what you do.
Yeah.
But then the problem is that if there's only one option and it sucks, then your next step for most people is just to stop following. Yep. That's the problem, is that there is a robust ecosystem of content that you can download and listen to about the NFL. And if Pat McAfee isn't your thing, then maybe Pardon My Take is. And if that's not your thing, then maybe, the Dan Patrick Show is your thing. But there are all sorts of different outlets that cover the NFL, specifically cover the NFL. And you will find, if you want to learn more and you want to get more involved in the league, you will find content that you enjoy. And in the MLS sphere, if you're not an Extra Time fan, you don't like the way it vibes, you don't like the hosts, you don't like what they talk about, then the next step is you just finding something else to do with your time. And that's not how you build a league following.
Yeah, I mean, like, even like on a team level, right? There's probably like 5 or 6 or 10 Bengals podcasts that are like orders of magnitude larger than like CST.
Right. In
It's
varying
just
degrees.
Like the ecosystem is, and that's not a dig on anybody.
No, because CST is just orders of magnitude bigger than us, I think.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's just like the ecosystem is so different. Yeah. And it's crazy that like the MLS instinct is to like reduce.
Right. Make smaller. This tiny little barely functioning thing.
Down.
Yeah, it needs to be smaller, less important, less good.
and our idea of like league-wide coverage is like having like 3 people who have never met each other before know the names of the coach of these teams.
Yeah.
Like,
this is good. It's rough, man. It's rough. Well, we have one more topic here. We don't have a ton of time, but Grayson, what do you got for us? Okay, fair enough. Grayson, what do we have for the Athletic article that came out about the negotiations? We got the sort of post-game wrap-up from Pablo Maurer speaking anonymously, I think, to both sides of this. I don't remember if there was a named source.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was. It was MLS. The headline was MLS Referees League find positives and negatives in new labor deal.
Classic negotiation.
Yeah, right. Like, which is good, right? Like, that's how you want it to be. The messaging with the net of it was that the messaging within MLS was that it was more favorable overall to the teams than to the refs. The refs were pretty pissed off about the tenor of negotiations, which we talked about before.
Yeah.
And, the refs ended up, as we've said, like near the top of like pay worldwide among refs, which, you may agree or disagree about whether they deserve that. But certainly there's a quote in here, actually, my favorite quote in here was the
one I pulled out that was my favorite as well, that it said at the end of this, it said, I think most owners across the league feel that refs are fairly compensated now, a stakeholder in an MLS club who spoke anonymously to protect their relationships. But if we're paying a salary that's globally competitive, we want better officiating. That's, I think, what the general feeling is. The refs just have to be better. There are a few owners out there who think that the league is giving these guys too much money, but even those guys will probably be fine with it if the quality gets better, which is basically what we had been saying all along on this. And that's that, like, look, they seem to be fairly compensated for the shit job they're doing. But if they're making more money, I think we need to see better than Bupenza getting a yellow card for being fallen on and a phantom sort of like back leg kick in a non-dangerous area resulting in a penalty to Charlotte against Yuya Kubo.
Yeah. And actually, that quote was interesting. And here's the other one is, so Garber has suggested that the tentative agreement that the PSRA membership rejected would have made them among the highest paid officials in the world. And here's the exact quote from Garber. Think about that. Third or whatever the number was. I think we all could agree that our players are not among the highest paid in the world. We have supported the growth of officials because it needed it. We're building again with energy and resources the growth of an entire new ecosystem of professional referees who are now on the field with world-class players. And I think that that's a good point that the referees are more well paid in their profession than the players are. And the referees wanted way more than that. And I don't know what the correct metric of judging how a referee should be paid would be, but I think that Chief's quote about they need to invest just broadly in training and infrastructure.
Yeah. To
attract, and we've said this before in this podcast, a better quality of referee across the board.
Although it does make me, what I was going to say is, it is funny to me that when you put it that way, in stark terms, comparing referees to players, can you imagine if they gave the referees all business class travel, what the MLSPA would come back asking for in the next negotiations? You fly these assholes first class, we're not taking a coach flight ever again.
Right.
Yeah. It's just yeah. The officials, they think they're the show.
Yeah.
Too often. And we need different ones.
Yeah.
We need to cycle through this whole situation.
Yeah. As a fan of the third team, I was really happy with the negotiations, and I'm glad they got as much as they did, and they should get more. I will not rest until our referees are the best paid in the world, regardless of quality or the relative.
It's just so funny because the PSRA was retweeting all of the information about MLS's revenue or about Messi's contract and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's you guys should, if you guys really wanted to be paid proportionately to how the players are paid versus these top leagues. We've said this on this podcast before, but you would not like that.
The ratio is not great.
And there was a thing about where they were oh, we know what's fair because we're officials. And it's man, if you guys they were so dishonest throughout the entire negotiation process with their public messaging.
Yep.
Which is fine if you're engaging in public messaging and you're just trying to negotiate and puff up your job.
Yeah.
But don't then tell me that because we are neutral arbiters.
Right.
Tweet, whistle. Just either admit that you're negotiating or act like you're doing some neutral bargaining.
Yeah.
But then don't lie.
I would love to see the PSRA have to deal with a similar pressure that the MLSPA does, which is MLS or pro in this case, paying transfer fees for better referees overseas and just like stocking the referee pool with the best from Europe and the best from Asia and the best from South America.
Yeah. I mean, that is the situation that like the MLSPA like has to deal with, is like if you agree to raise the salary cap and the like DP limit and all that stuff too much, you're going to bargain a lot of your members out of a job.
Yeah. Man, could you imagine?
I just want to see the MLSPA officials officiate a Zach Edey basketball game. That would just make everyone mad.
The dream scenario. Is there anything else around the league that we want to touch on before we answer some questions? Yeah, same here. All right. Well, then let's head on over to part 3, Patreon questions, and we'll call it a podcast. All right. We are back in part 3. And of course, we have questions asked by our beautiful, lovely, as I've always said, very attractive patrons on Patreon. You're allowed to ask us one question only a month. Don't ask us questions on Twitter, in person, on the Discord, anywhere else. It has to be paid for. That's a joke, just in case people don't get that. So I've got
They won't get it.
Of course not. I can't wait for that to be thrown back in my face. But we have the last handful of questions for March. This one comes to us from Extra Medium. Aside from Columbus, what's one away day you absolutely hated or just never want to do? So you don't necessarily have to have been there, but never want to do. Is there an away day you never want to do?
I don't think I really have any great desire to go to Yankee Stadium to see a game.
I was going to say the same thing.
That feels like it would suck.
Yeah.
You
know what else? Drive Pink Stadium in Miami. It's in Fort Lauderdale. It's not really in Miami.
It's not called Drive Pink anymore, I think.
Like crypto.com or something.
They got a slightly more reputable sponsor. It's like JP Morgan Stadium or something stupid.
It's Chase Stadium.
Chase. Yeah, I don't even bank there, so that would be a strike on it too. Yeah, it's in Fort Lauderdale. It's temporary. It's hot. No interest.
Colorado. I mean, Denver is obviously
Denver is a great away day city.
If they played in Denver, I'm sure it'd be great. I'm just saying a suburb way outside in a stadium that doesn't have a roof. That sounds kind of shitty. I've got another one for you here. Sarah Gorman asks, a lot of my other podcasts have all watched and reviewed it. So I must ask, what are your thoughts on the 2000s Dungeons and Dragons movie with Jeremy Irons?
Haven't seen it.
It does feature a cameo by Tom Baker, legendary actor who played the Fourth Doctor on Doctor Who. So for that, I give it a thumbs up.
Wow, I've never seen it. I've got to put it in the old to watch list.
I'll watch it.
Shit. All right, we're already making off-season plans. This is great.
Film club.
I'll watch it. I'll find an excuse to throw in my thoughts at the. Whenever I watch it.
You have to turn it into a headline.
We're not doing an episode on this. We're not doing an episode on this movie.
I'm
putting my foot down.
Putting
my foot down. We're not doing an episode on this movie. I will just find an excuse to like throw in my thoughts into like a headline or something whenever I watch it.
Like all other podcasts, when we do a Dungeons and Dragons episode, we should open up with like thoughts about the Dungeons and Dragons movie and then use that.
Well, I've seen the new one, which I thought was quite good, but I'm going to save my thoughts about that until we do our like actual D&D episode.
Fair.
Well, we got to have something to compare it to. I think the agenda is set now. Key asks us, similar to the first question, if
Keenan Michael Key,
he's a sponsor. This is huge.
Wow.
Damn.
Awesome.
Right, let's go.
No, I was just going to say a better host would have put these two questions closer together. You have to construct your worst game day experience. Who is playing? Where is it? And who are the two guests you're bringing? I'll also accept a worst game day experience story. I'll also accept. How dare you? We make the rules around here, sir. Or
tell us what you can accept.
Worst game day experience. I mean, it does sound like.
You want some more?
I mean, I think I've had this experience. It's like like 2019 FC Cincinnati.
It's going to the Columbus Crew game last year with you two.
it's going to the Eastern Conference final.
Being like, oh, we're gonna build like a whole content experience around going to this game, and then the game is the worst game I've ever been to.
And it's sandwiched around two other games that would have been better to have built the content around, the Miami and Nashville games.
Well, we'll just try to do better this year, I guess.
Who's the worst guest, though, you could bring to a game? That's a good question. A small child. Does that mean?
The worst guest I could bring to a game?
Like an uncle that hates soccer. Just like hates it.
Honestly, like
like I said, an uncle that hates soccer, clearly.
Yapstam.
Yeah. I don't want to hear Gerard's thoughts about like which players he like brought in and like, you know, how much credit he gets for stop.
I want Yapstam's thoughts. I would have loved to have sat next to him during the Charlotte game where he thinks, this is what I did. This is what I coach. And I said, but this team's top of the league. I don't know how to explain this to you.
Yeah. How would you fix this offense?
One fewer center back, clearly. Okay, well, I'll save that one for last. We'll go with Sed's question. Top 2 wish list former players to pull the sword. I've got mine ready to go.
Former players?
Former players. I'll give you my 2. First one, Fernando Adi. Second one, Andy Craven. Easy.
No.
Easy.
Great.
Top
awesome. 2. Yep, no questions. Chief, go.
Declan Cannon, and I'm going to go with Harrison Delbridge.
Thought you were going to say Jimmy McLaughlin because he hasn't done it yet.
He just keeps doing it over and over again.
Mitch and Manu.
Oh, yeah. Mitch. Yeah, Mitch is a miss. That's the right answer here.
You can only have Mitch, though, when he stops coaching for St. Louis. I think that's fair.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I don't care.
I'm ready for Mitch.
They're no threat to us.
Would you
they got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
That's true. No,
they didn't win the Shield. They got knocked out. Mitch and Manu.
He's the goalkeeping coach for St. Louis. He's the St. Louis has the consensus best goalkeeper.
Don't care.
I mean, that's not a coincidence.
Do not care. Don't care.
Hire him then. I don't care. I don't think about St. Louis. Like I don't care about them. They're not our rival. Bring Mitch in. We should have him back. We should have him back on the show. Kevin, will you see if he wants to come back on the show?
I'll try. We traumatized him last time. Last question here. This is a good one. Kells Bells asks, for people who are newer to the podcast, can you explain how you met each other / became interested in FCC? The how we met is a super interesting question.
I think we talked about Kevin and our origin stories. We got into a fight on Reddit that then Kevin showed up in person to a meeting of the Pride back when I was still involved with the leadership of that organization. And we became friends after that. We
hit it off.
Got drinks repeatedly after having to deal with soccer nonsense. Started an actual friendship outside of soccer, and Grayson entered into our lives just by being a good writer. And deciding he wanted to contribute content to the post like a loser.
Yeah, I was
huge mistake.
I was on Twitter in I guess 20 when did the Crew win with Porter? 2020? They won MLS Cup?
Yes, that was a COVID year.
So I was on Twitter in 2020 and I saw a lot of people in the FC Cincinnati sphere saying how they were supporting the Crew in the MLS Cup for some reason. And it bothered me. So I wrote, I created like a Medium page and wrote like a thing, like a sarcastic article about like how good friends we were with the Crew fans, and how like if the roles were reversed, they would definitely be rooting for us to win MLS Cup. And I like tagged a bunch of like MLS Twitter people on it. And then like Kevin asked, like, you know, do you want to write for the Post?
Yeah.
So like I wrote some stuff for the Post from there, and that's how it happened. And I'll try to find it, and maybe we'll link that piece in the show notes.
The original article. I would love
the original
that.
article. I'll try to find it. I don't think I remember like what my login for that thing was, because I think I wrote like exactly 2 things on it. But,
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it, and we'll link it in the show notes.
It was so good. It was like my girlfriend's boyfriend is such a Crew fan and stuff. I have our first interaction here up on my screen, because I was just going back through some old DMs recently. The first thing I ever said to you was, I know this is Andrew Springsteen.
Noted man behind the shadows of many FC Cincinnati shenanigans. I do remember, Kevin, I don't know if we've ever talked about this publicly, but there was a plan that we had back in the day to do a FC Cincinnati themed YouTube show with Jonah.
Oh.
Called what was it called? The Orange and Truth, I think is what we were going to call it.
Yes. Oh, man.
Where it was going to be like,
Truth.
it was going to be like like an Alex Jones style,
Yes.
like talking about deep state conspiracies surrounding FC Cincinnati. And so we had a separate channel, like a text group for the Orange and Truth. And eventually the people that were doing that channel were the same knuckleheads, you know, from the Post, you know, me, Kevin, you know, Das Harks, Max, Mame, Jonah. And then we had another channel that was for people that were writing for the Post. And eventually the only difference between the 2 channels was that one Grayson was in, one Grayson wasn't. And I said at one point, like, why don't we just move everything over to the channel Grayson's in? And that other server got completely abandoned at this point.
Yeah, that was a funny moment. Yeah, the origins is really funny, I think.
A friendly rivalry by FC Simp C.
The profile picture was Karl Marx in an FCC kit, if I remember correctly.
it was actually like, so it was a picture of Ron Jans in black and white with Karl Marx's face just replacing Ron.
That's what it was.
It's like, oh, that's all gone now.
Yeah. Oh no! Oh. There's a link to a dead Post article in the Post. Damn.
Oh damn! So there's 4 articles on this account.
Oh, there is a link to my first writing for the Cincy Post. The 15,000 tickets sold proves Anthony Precourt was right all along.
That was for the longest time in the top 5 most read things on the website.
We got to figure out. There's like some stuff from the old site that's like, I think deserves to live.
Yeah, I gotta talk to Eric about that. He's got the archive somewhere. When I made the transition, I made the cold calculated decision to take the top 50 most read articles, and that was it.
And from all that sprung, now, you know, we're all friends, and that's kind of cute.
Yeah, it's fun.
I've Grayson and Kevin are referred to as my podcast friends.
There, that's nice. My internet friends.
Unfortunately,
yeah. Kevin, I think you should put all 4 of those FC Simpsy articles in the show notes.
They will make it in there.
If you've listened this long in the show, you deserve this little treat. Now Kevin's just reading now. You know what?
I'm just reading the last paragraph. It's so funny.
We're gonna go back and we're gonna end this trip down memory lane by reading all of Grayson's original contributions from FC Simpsy. So while everyone is reading, until next time, go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. I also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it, if you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to this show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.